All right. We're live, everybody. Happy Community Management Appreciation Day in 2016. Um, each year, for about 7 years, well, for 7 years now, ever since Jeremiah Owang recommended that we take the fourth Monday of each January and recognize community managers, we've been doing that as a community. And in fact, for 4 years now, we've been doing a live hangout which is now 24 hours, celebrating with community managers all over the world. And in the last 3 years, we've done awards, and with the help of sponsors, given out awards to recognize community managers from our community. And this year, there's over 300 of those nominations. So thank you to everyone who nominated your fellow community managers, and it'll be really exciting. We'll be giving those awards away a little bit later today. And hello, everybody. My name is Brew. I'm the Director of Awesome with BTC Revolutions, and also co-producer at My Community Manager.
Hey, everybody. I'm Sherry Rohde. I'm the Community Manager at Magento and co-producer at CMGR Hangout.
Hey, guys. I'm Barack. I am the founder of Amplify Your Biz, and I am also the Community Manager for Meshfire.
Hey, guys. I am Dom, Project Manager, Community Manager with BTC Revolutions, as well as co-host of Community Manager Hangout with Sherry and Brew. Wanted to take some time really quick to thank all of our award sponsors. Really awesome, and this really wouldn't be possible without them. So big thank you to Salesforce, Community Cloud, to Higher Logic, Online Community Results, Sprout Social, Vanilla Forums, Zoomph, communitymanagement.org, socialmedia.org, Amplify Yourself, Igloo Intranet, and Meshfire. Thanks so much for all of your support, guys. And they also support that we can provide the support so that we can do awards. And the first one that we're actually going to be giving away is coming up in just 3 hours. So really looking forward to that.
Awesome. Thanks, Dom. Well, this is hour 8 of 24 hours, so I believe that means we're about a third through this. And the topic is the future of community management. And Harold, we'll take it over to you.
Thanks, Brew. Hi, everybody. I'm Harold. I'm proud and honored to be joining your hangout today. And I've asked a couple of people who are very insightful and big names in community management. So I think this will be a really interesting discussion. I'm the chairman of the Dutch Community Managers Association, and as such, I would like to think and discuss the future of community management. What's the next big thing? Where are we headed? Where is community management? Where will it be in 2020 or 2025? Those are the topics that really interested me, and that's why I said I would like to do a hangout about the future of community management. And I've asked a couple of people, like Rachel Happy, Diane Hinchcliffe, Joke Dunil, and Felix Gutaro. So I would like to hand it over to them to shortly introduce themselves. So Rachel, if you could kick off, please. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Harold, and thank you for having me this morning. Happy CMAD to everybody. I know you guys are all working in the trenches, and most of the progress we've made in the industry is thanks to a lot of sweat and tears on the front lines. I'm Rachel Hoppy. I started the Community Roundtable also just about 7 years ago in April. And our mission is to demonstrate the value of community and community management. And we do that really through a research-backed approach to that. So most of you probably know us from our research. We also have membership and advisory and other training products, but the research is really the core of everything we do. And I will kick this off by saying that I think that community management is the future approach to all management. And our research last year said that roughly 70% of the community programs that we surveyed, which I think are leading the market, so that's probably not accurate for every community program, but 70% of them were now reporting up to the C-suite. or senior executives. And that's a huge leap from where we were 5 years ago, where communities were kind of off in a closet somewhere, and executives didn't really care or didn't really understand what was going on there. So that's me.
Thank you, Rachel. Diane, could you please introduce yourself? Thank you.
Sure. So many of you know who I am. My name is Diane Hinchcliffe. I'm a columnist for ZDNet. I've been tracking the community space for many years. I'm also Chief Strategy Officer for 7 Summits, where we design online communities for some of the largest companies in the world. And I've been tracking this space and watching it grow like Rachel for the last 10 years. And it has been remarkable how community management has gone from to what is it to we know we have to have it to now becoming a strategic capability. And we look at large organizations, companies like Bosch, where they make community managers a level 18 employee rank. That's all the way up there with the C-suite. At least that's the potential for the progression. So we see how some companies have really understood how important this capability is to really drive forward their organizations and how they perform and how they operate. So it's great to be here, and great. Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Diane, sorry. Joke, can you please introduce yourself shortly?
Yes, hi, I'm Joke. I'm the founder of VLCM, which is the Flemish Community Managers. We try to connect the Flemish community managers, help them with events, with more information. It's really impressive what all of you guys are doing, so I hope to learn a lot today. Next to that, I'm a freelance community manager and social media manager, and I'm really looking forward to this panel.
Thank you, Joke. Good to have you. And last but definitely not least, we have Fedor from the Russian Community Managers Association. So Fedor, could you please introduce yourself? Thank you.
Hi guys, thanks Harold, and thanks to my community manager for this hangout. I represent Russian Community Managers Associations. Also, I'm working for New Cloud Technologies. It's a worldwide brand Calabria office, and I'm looking forward to today's discussion because in Russia we have not so many community managers, about 2,000 or 3,000 of them, and about 100,000 of those who name themselves as social media managers. So we're definitely interested in becoming more and more influence in Russian market. Thank you.
Thank you, Fedor. As I said, I would like to talk and think with all of you about the future of community management. So I know this is a rather broad topic, and I also know that between all of us, there is a lot of differences between how we actually operate within community management. Some may have own community solutions, some may only have a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group, but there is a common divide. It's obviously we know that community management is all about connecting people, and it's not about technology. So I would like to invite Rachel as co-host of this Google Hangout to share her thoughts about a rather tickling statement she made just a couple of minutes ago, that she said community management is the future of all management. So Rachel, could you please elaborate about on that?
Sure. So what I've seen, and I was a technology analyst, and I was in product marketing and product management in the technology field ahead of this. But what I've seen over the years is the progression of how we communicate digitally has gone from a linear and transaction one-to-one mechanism to this networked mechanism. And once you do that, you open up knowledge, you make things transparent, not necessarily to the entire public, but to more than me and you, more than a 20-person email thread, and it can be shared, and it's a social artifact all of a sudden. And when you do that, the world explodes. So for those of you who are on Twitter 10 years ago with like the Hardy Band, it was more of a community then. But all of a sudden we could communicate with people in Russia and France and China, and it was amazing because, I guess I'm showing my age, but it was amazing because we could never do that before. And so more and more of our communications is happening in that way. When that happens, what happens is we live now in a world of information abundance instead of information scarcity. And if you look, we always operated in information scarcity, and it required hierarchies and all of this complex control of information and knowledge, and you needed certifications to be able to talk to so-and-so, and there was a highly regulated flow of information. That's all been broken down, and as that happens, the smart people and employees in the world are operating with a lot of agency on their own, and they know that there is a lot of competitive opportunity. So those people will not be employed if they are told what to do. That's the whole point of my control is for amateurs. People don't like being told what to do. We've put up with it in the past because we had no options. But now we have options both as customers and employees. And so when we have options, we're not going to allow people to tell us what to do. So then management in the traditional sense is kind of screwed because we're task managers, we're making sure you get your deliverables in on time and they're complete to my specifications, not yours. That whole era of management is breaking down. If I want to hire a team, I've got to give them meaning and purpose and something that excites them and something that makes them want to volunteer and say, hell yeah, I want to do that. And I have to coach them so that we all do get to a productive end. But that's a very different modality of management, and I feel like that's what community managers have learned over the years, how to steer and put boundary conditions around large groups of people so that they actually get somewhere productive instead of just become a mass chaos, but without telling every individual within the community what to do. So that's kind of my take on it.
Right. I do agree, of course, being a community manager. You're actually saying that it's not the community manager per se that will be a C-level job, but more the way we work is a process which will that a lot of companies will adopt. Am I right, or?
Well, so Jim Storr, my co-founder, has always said that everybody's a community manager. They just don't know it yet. So if you are an individual out in the world and you use community management skills, you will make connections and build your career much faster than if you don't. If you're an executive and you use community management skills, you will get where you want to go much faster than if you don't. So I see it like teaching. Everyone teaches. People who are really good in their careers teach really well, although they may not think of it that way. And then there's professionals. And so I think there's room for all of that in the future.
Well, and I think that in the past we used to manage our teams or manage our projects or manage our departments, but we really have this new entity we never had before, which are these digital communities inside our organizations and outside of our organizations. And that the leaders of the future are going to be community managers because they can achieve a lot more than those who are just managing down into the traditional hierarchy. They're able to tap into self-organizing capabilities that didn't exist before. So I think that this is one of the reasons that the executive board here in the United States, they said network leadership is the most important new skill that most managers don't have, and I think that's just yet another sign that there's a general understanding of the importance of developing these skills. Most managers, most leaders don't have the ability to lead over the network yet, and community management, the skills that are involved in that is the gateway for that.
Right. I do, well, obviously, again, being a community manager, I agree with all of you. Before I elaborate a little more on it. I would like to know, Joke, how does this work in Belgium? Because even though we are Belgium, I'm from the Netherlands, and Belgium is just south of us. We are practically neighbors. We talked before, and the culture in Belgium is so much different than from the Netherlands, which is, well, just a couple of miles away. So how does that work in Belgium?
Well, in Belgium, I think the first time we had contact was because we had a difference on the definition of community manager. And actually, it changed my point of view. I do think now that there is a big difference between social media manager and community manager, although the terms in Belgium are, not a lot of people know that there is a difference between those two terms. To answer your question, what are the differences, Belgium and Netherlands? That is all I can answer. I haven't worked with the Netherlands that much, so I don't know. I can't really make big statements on that. But I do agree with what Rachel says. The community manager is going to change. I think it's going to be more of a connector in the company, connecting the right people, connecting the people inside of the company and outside of the company. And I also think they should become more activators than actually just doing community management. And you know, we say community manager, but the old school community manager didn't really manage a lot. I think new school community manager should be more of a manager, should actually, instead of doing customer service, manage customer service or guide them, facilitate them to do a better job. Instead of making copy, briefing the copywriter, I think that should be the person who knows the community, who knows what they need, but not necessarily do all of the executional work.
Right, I agree. Thank you, thank you. Hey, Fedor, can you elaborate a little about how community managers will change management? So the model of community managers, the way we work, how does that reflect in Russia? Do you see parallels, or do you see something completely different? Can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, I totally agree about the role of community managers in nearest future. In Russia, we have two different trends. First one, as I said before, we have about 100,000 of those who named themselves as social media managers, but they are mostly the content managers. We have our own big social network, vk.com, maybe you know it. And it's this is the main field, the main playground for almost all of the social media managers and all of community managers. And we are in bounds of VK progress and VK improvements. They become more. They develop the platform as a place for e-commerce. So I think that there will be two different trends in the future. First one is that the community managers will become more and more oriented on Facebook and Western platforms, and the social media managers will become more and more e-commerce oriented. So about the role of the community management in management as a whole area, as a whole field of we are not very influenced. We have lack of influence in most of Russian companies, and there is community managers who are in charge of big decisions in companies only in game dev. It's a single market in Russia who which respect community managers. I think that in nearest in, well, 2 or 3 years, there will be no upgrading of our role, but we, as a Community Managers Association, will do everything for integrate Russian community managers in the brilliant world of cross-country communications. That's our big problem. We don't integrate. We know nobody. We're excluded from world communication field.
So what I've heard you say is that social media managers will drive e-commerce and community managers will drive connecting people. That makes sense, but
yes,
I'm also wondering what I am seeing in the Netherlands, and I dare even say on a global scale, is that community management and social media management, they are intertwining. They have a lot of overlap with each other, and but there are also huge differences. I'm wondering, Rachel, what do you see as the big difference between social media managers and community managers, and how does that hold up in the future? Because you just said community management the model will be the future of all management, but aren't we stepping, as I see it, on the toes of social media managers in the future?
Well, it's interesting. Absolutely, there's so much overlap there. But I also think that companies are realizing that the marginal gains of using social media with traditional processes are petering out. Meaning now that everybody's on social, it doesn't give them much more than they had before without really revolutionizing how they think of acquiring customers, supporting customers, etc. And so one of the reasons I suspect, but I'll see, that I'm at socialmedia.org is that a lot of these social media leaders are saying, okay, we can't just keep pumping content and having chit-chat with people out on Facebook. It doesn't scale, one, and two, we're not bringing them into the family at all. We're just giving them nice content, they like it, they're reading it, but it's not actually like doing its job of conversion. And so one of the things that we're working on with a lot of clients is building ecosystem maps and saying, okay, what's your footprint across the engagement ecosystem, whether that's CRM systems, whether it's knowledge bases, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, and what's the purpose of each of these channels? How do they shake hands with each other? And how do you create that funnel to bring them into the family? So one way I think about this that everyone can understand is to have a church, you don't need a church building. You can get together in each other's living rooms and have a pastor and be a church. You don't need the building. You can do it in community halls, whatever. But, oh, it's a lot easier if you have a building. Right. That enables a lot of activity that it was too complex to do before. So I think we're at the point where people are realizing it's not a choice between one or the other, but really using both is the most effective strategy, and really taking a more community management strategy perspective. And what I mean by that is figuring out the win-win-win business strategy, like what can I do to help my customers win that will help me win in the end. Like it's a generosity first business strategy, help them succeed and they'll help me succeed. I think people are starting to realize that social and community and all other engagement channels need to be informed by that perspective.
Right. All right, thank you. Very, very insightful. Diane, I remember you a couple of years ago, maybe in 2010 or 2009, you had this really, to me, shocking infographic that the community manager was a jack of all trades. And I still use that infographic in presentations today, but I also think that we are, as community managers, more and more try to, I'm not sure if the English word is right, but to throw off some of those responsibilities or tasks that we do, as they are more overlapping with social media managers. So my question to you, I may be stepping on your toes, but is that infographic, is it still relevant?
I think it's still relevant, but Rachel now has the new community manager skills wheel that shows the 50 things that really community managers need to do. So I think it's actually, the issue is that because community management is becoming more and more central to how we work and how we do business, that it is specializing, and so we have some tasks that junior community managers would carry out. So day-to-day moderation and the kind of the daily operation of the community, and then the strategic planning is now another important component, and that is educating executives, creating roadmaps to find and figuring out and planning for the community what it's going to do over the next few years. And all the traditional things around budgeting and so on. So I think we're seeing specialization has emerged, especially in large communities. So if you look at especially large corporate communities, customer communities, those sorts of things, the jack of all trades is more true now than ever, I believe. I think it's becoming more professional as well. Community management has become a genuine profession at a very high level compared to, let's say, social media management, which I think is a very important skill, but I don't think it's reached the strategic nature that community management has now achieved. And I think that they do have to work together closely going forward in order to achieve the outcomes I think that we're looking for.
Right, thank you. So how does that work in Belgium, Joke? Obviously, you said there are overlapping, maybe even more than in my country, the Netherlands. So do you think community management will, in Belgium at least, specialize, or will it be broader?
I think it will specialize. I think I think that we don't really realize that there are two jobs, and I hope that when people see this talk, they might think, okay, I'm more of a community manager or more of a social media manager. I think it depends on the business that you're in, which one you should choose. Like, you probably know this, but the low complexity markets like fast-moving consumer goods are more likely to invest in social media, while the high complexity markets like software will probably be more benefiting from a forum. So in Belgium, most of us are social media managers. We use the social networks to communicate and to build, or to try to build a group around our brand. So that's how it is in Belgium.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I also see that a lot of younger generations are not very willing to join forums, the classic forums. When I was in my 20s, there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter. Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm 42, so that's 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. There was no Facebook or no Twitter, so if you wanted to communicate online, all you had was ICQ or MSN Messenger. And,
IRC.
Yeah, IRC, wow, BBS. And the classic forum, but as we, as community managers, well, the group of us now in this hangout are getting older. Mm-hmm. Younger generations are no longer eager to join classic forums. At least mm-hmm. That's what I think. That's my vision. So my statement is, classic forums are declining because they're not sexy.
Okay.
And what will replace them?
I don't fully agree. I don't fully agree in that way that when you look at fora evolve, the forum where you went to and spend all of your time, it's evolving. For example, when you look at Reddit, Reddit is a really big forum with a lot of subreddits. You cannot say that Reddit is dying. It's a very big forum. 4chan, okay, you can like it or dislike it. It's also not really dying. I think fora still have a specific role for even for the youth, also for businesses. For example, when you Google a problem, you will probably first land on a forum where they are discussing the problem, if you're lucky, especially if it's a software problem. So for call deflation for a company, it might be very interesting to still keep a forum. Is it necessary that the youth spends all of its time on a forum? I don't think so. I think that if there are a lot of power users and people that are really dedicated to the brand, that might be enough just to keep the forum alive. I don't think they are dying. I also don't think they are sexy, but they are not dying.
Okay, well, you mentioned Reddit, and
yeah.
I'm not a Redditor. I know what it is, but I'm not on Reddit. So,
okay.
Maybe I'd like to ask Diane and Rachel, is Reddit something that is sort of like next generation of classic forums, or will there be something else? So, Diane, could you please comment on this question?
Sure, yeah. So this is an important topic because the channels and the platforms and the places in which communities can thrive, it continues to evolve, right? So I would argue that forums are probably at their high water mark. I don't know if they're going to decline, but I don't know if they're going to grow at the same rate. We see a big push towards real-time communication communities, or a lot of interest in especially smaller scale conversations as well as the big ones. So new channels, new platforms like Slack, like WhatsApp, things like that are also becoming an important part of the community conversation. I think we're still trying to figure out, can they be managed in the same way? Do they work in the same way? They don't quite, but there's no doubt they're part of the community phenomenon. So I think the struggle is going to be channel fragmentation. We are going to see a more real-time aspect to communities as the technology evolves. And so it's exciting to see we're on Google Hangouts here. Video is also going to be an important component of all that. But we still have a few years in which we have to figure all that out. But I think it's exciting. I think communities the model for communities has to evolve in digital channels. I think it is evolving, but I think it'll be a challenge for us to deal with the fragmentation and the proliferation of them.
Thanks. Very insightful. I agree with you that it will be more real time, but I have no idea where it's going. So I'd like to ask Fedor, what do you think will be the next level of what I said? Communities, I think, in classic forums are dying and will be replaced by something like Diane said, more real time. So how do you see that in the Russian culture? Can you talk a little about that, please?
Yeah, I don't agree about the dying of classical forums because, well, I think that when Facebook will develop a proper search system, there will be no problem in using of classical Facebook groups as a replacement for old system. The forums have their strength, even in search system. It's very organized system of information of storing the information. You can join any forum, and the classic Facebook pages or classic Reddits and other communication platforms. They are. I don't remember the proper word. They are momentum. You join them and you join the community and you ask something. You don't do search, and I think that Facebook groups will they have their great potential for replacing the classical forum systems. I may be wrong. I believe in Facebook well.
So is that also something, because I know P-Contact and just a little, is that also something that in your country P-Contact is looking at to do?
Sorry, can you repeat the last question? I have a noise in my...
Oh, you mentioned Facebook will maybe replace features of classical forums. Is that also something that P-Contact will do?
VK, as I said before, they develop the platform as e-commerce platform. They have their messaging for business. You can there is a rumors that they implement a system of tracking of e-commerce, of classical e-commerce tracking. Well, I believe in these rumors because I look at all the change that DK made in the past year. They don't really. They're not doing something with groups or with their forum system. Well, it's not about money. It's not generate cash flow.
Right. All right. Thanks, Rachel. What do you think about what we just discussed? Will classic forums or even owned channels? I don't think that the generation after us think that's very sexy, and will move more towards what Diane said, real-time platforms like maybe even WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups. So how do you see that? Because that's actually kind of a bold statement that classical forums are dying, and I hope it's not true. But that's what I see. So what do you think about that?
So I put this in the city planning context and say we're moving from, in the U.S., I'll use cities, we're moving from Washington, D.C. to New York City. Like, the environment is getting a lot more fragmented. There's a lot more. There's not clean avenues. We're not sure where all the major federal buildings are. There's lots of speakeasies and little niches around the people. And so one of the things that's going to be hardest for community owners or community program owners is catching up and keeping up with all the places that their community is interacting with. And frankly, I don't think it's possible at the end of the day to always be present there.
Right.
What I'm seeing is there's an emerging specialist role of community architect who will find out what all these different fragmentation pieces are and create better flows between them when that's appropriate. So I think there will always be the forum crowd. Like, have you met software architects? They love that. They love, like, the chit-chat, chat. They do not want necessarily a Facebook group. And there's reasons like that real time is hard. There's no content management, and search is good, but like you can't really organize a browsing experience. So that's just like another kind of bar or whatever in a major city. It's just another way to access information, and people will pick and choose which ways they want to do that. Our job then is to make the appropriate content and people and access available and make it clear where people can find things if they want it. And that's going to be a bigger challenge as more people come online.
All right. That makes sense. Thank you so much for elaborating on that. I do agree, and I hope we are all right. But well, maybe it's just my maybe limited point of view that I even think that classic forums are not sexy anymore. 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I was 24/7, basically online on online forums. And now, when I see myself in the last couple of years, I hardly ever go to online forums because I have to log in. I have to go via a browser, and I have an iPhone with a couple of apps, the Facebook app, the Twitter app. So I'm immediately there where I want to be without having extra things to do. So I think logging onto a forum via a mobile, because let's be fair, 3/4 of the internet traffic is mobile. It's just too much of a hassle for me. And when I'm in my Facebook app on my phone, I can go to the groups right in the app and join the discussion there and connect with people instead of having to start a browser, log in, username, email address, password, stuff like that. So I think that's a barrier for younger people. And I'm wondering if we all think, and I hope we're all right, that sort of like the online classic forums, which we all know are not declining, how should we, and if yes, how are we going to take away the barriers for younger people?
So I will say that I agree with you that software has evolved incredibly in the last decade. So to say that people prefer vBulletin to Facebook, I think you're right. Meaning we just have a lot more flexibility in architecture and software right now to make experiences more pleasing, more rewarding, more easy. To me, that doesn't necessarily equate to there's never a brand-hosted community versus a Facebook. To me, that gets at how do you integrate the two, not remove one, but how do you, like one of the think about in our Facebook group, we have one, how do we take the conversations that matter and are evergreen back to our full community so that they're indexed and managed over there, and how do we let the things that are more real-time just go by in the flow? So it's a content knowledge management problem that ends up occurring, and again, it's a community management problem to the extent we say on Facebook, these are the conversations we want to have. If you really want to get into it in this area, you need to go over to the church building. Like, don't have that conversation in the coffee shop, go over to the church and we'll have that conversation together. I don't think people have figured that out yet.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think if you look at the future of community is going to have to adapt to new usage patterns. I think if you're not making your community mobile friendly, you're going to have the exact sort of experiences that you encountered, Harold. And I think that we have to adapt, and I think that a lot of the older communities and a lot of the older community platforms haven't adapted that well. We are seeing the rise of new players, things like Community Cloud from Salesforce. They're going to try and solve some of these problems, be much more mobile friendly, and whatever's next. The user experience is going to continue to evolve. Communities have to adapt.
Harold, you should unmute your microphone.
Thanks. I've been muted by our community manager. I've been numb. Anyways, Joke, what's your take on adapting platforms and taking away barriers? How do you think that will happen in Belgium? Unmute. You have to unmute first.
I learned nothing. One of the things that I want to mention about communities and platform is also the anonymity. Social media, most of them, they are not really anonymous. People know who you are. People if you want to act silly or have a strange opinion, they know who you are. If you are on a forum, mostly people don't know who you are, and I think that you might like that.
Good point.
But that was not an answer to your question.
No, I think my question was, how does that work in Belgium? Do you see differences between, or how do you think that will evolve in Belgium?
Well, most fora that I know, and I have to be honest, I am mostly on international fora, not on Belgian fora specifically. Most of the fora that I know are based, are focused on call deflation. So people use the forum instead of go to the self-serve. They don't have to call the help desk because, according to some numbers I heard this week, a call costs about €8, and a forum post, answering a forum post, is about 50 cents. I don't know what it is in dollars or in Russian, whatever, but there's a big difference. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of companies still use fora for customer service in Belgium.
All right, thank you. Well, from our moderators, we just received our 10-minute warning, so we're nearly at the end of our hangout. I would like to hear from all of you what will be the next big thing in community management. Well, let's keep it down a little for 2016. I would like to think about what's happening in 2020 or 25. I will say that community managers are more sort of change agents, or at least they will become. And companies and people around companies will be more aware of that community managers were responsible for, maybe not responsible for, but let's call it responsible for igniting change, because we see what's happening on the inside in our organizations and in our companies, but we also see what's happening on the outside in our communities. And what the community is demanding from us, or is asking from us politely, maybe not even demanding, we can take that input and let it land with the right people in our organizations or with the right departments, so that companies can actually change to do better, to be not just to deliver better service, but to be better companies. And first, I would like to ask Rachel to comment on what do you think will be the next big thing in 2016?
Well, for us, I agree with you, Harold. I think that's a little longer view. I think community managers are understanding the psychology of change, and that incremental change and social peer pressure is really the most effective way. Communities create truth. So if you want to create somebody's truth, the best way to do it is surround people with that truth. You could look at United States politics and say, some of it is insane, but there are communities that reinforce that truth. And so we look at it and say it's crazy, but the community self-reinforces something that they may not think is true. What I have seen in our work is our research has really matured to the point where it's kind of exciting. We can go into a client and pretty much tell them what they need to do and in what order to build a community really efficiently. Like, we know how to do that. And that makes community building much more tolerable to executives, because all of a sudden community management is risk management, meaning we're not just communicating with a mob. We know how to go out and predictably roll this out so that we don't get a PR crisis or a blow up or all the things that happen when a community is not managed well. And so from that perspective, it opens the floodgates. And we've seen this on community budgets. That 50 skill wheel thing we do, I get a lot of feedback. I'm supposed to do all of that? And I'm like, no, the community team is supposed to do all of that. And some of those people aren't full-time on the community team, but those are all the skills you need to create a good community program. So I'm excited because that means we can actually have the resources to really do this well versus this kind of ad hoc approach. And you know, one of the things we're finding is there's fewer and fewer lone wolf community managers out there. And that's exciting because we can finally make strategic headway versus just always being reactive to what the community is doing. So I just think community management is going to be more predictable, and that will help everything.
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. Diane, can you please tell us what you think will be the next big thing in community management in 2016?
So for 2016, I think I agree with Rachel that we're going to see the increased professionalism of the space. I think that it's become a real career track in the industry, and even inside some organizations now have a very well-defined career path for community management. And we're going to see that continue in 2016, and you know, see as part of that professionalism, the specialization that we talked about, so that your community manager team, they have the job roles and descriptions and the salary levels and the career path inside the organization as a community manager. Where can you go? What can you do? All of that will continue, I think, in 2016. Another big trend that will become, I think, significant is the analytics and the data capture around how communities perform. So what should a community actually look like in its first year or its fifth year? How do you determine if it's healthy? What analytics and what dashboards and what tools are available for it? So I think both the process of analyzing communities and understanding how they're really doing and you know, and how they're changing our organizations, that we're going to see people being much more interested in that. And I think that I know that you know, Rachel's working on measures for capturing that data. She has a lot in her reports, and I think that we'll see that in many of the community platforms themselves will be capturing that data, and we'll be sharing it more as an industry. So I'm hoping for that, but I actually see some evidence that's going to be happening in 2016. And I think the next I think as part of professionalism, I think certification is going to become more important. And with many of our customers, we're seeing people who want to work with community managers that have experience, or in some way they know that when they hand over customer service or some other important function of their company into the community manager's hands, that they have an understanding that they have somebody who is capable of doing that. So I think that career path certification is also going to become significant. And then I think finally the capability of community management. We've always been able to outsource it. You've been able to go to different companies who can provide that, but I think that you're going to see that become increasingly efficient and mechanized. You'll be able to get community managers on demand for your new community that you've created much more easily and much more quickly than you ever could before, as more community managers are available out there. New services come online that gives access to those capabilities. So I think it'll be easier for companies and organizations to get community management activated in their communities than ever before in this year. So it's exciting, all great proofs of the maturity of the industry, I think.
All right, thank you, Diane. I think it's obviously data is very, very important. It's sort of like the phrase "no pictures didn't happen." It's like community management will grow in 2016, and I think it would be a nice roundup for this hangout. So let's start using the phrase "no data didn't happen."
So Harold,
yeah.
Can I just put in a pitch, because our State of Community Management survey is going out tomorrow, and I would like everyone to participate, and we'll actually score everyone. So if you want to know what your benchmark is, by doing the survey, you'll get it.
Thank you, Rachel. Very, very helpful pitch indeed. I was expecting that, of course. But as it's 5 to 2 in the afternoon here in Amsterdam, that means we have just a couple of minutes left, and our moderator said, let's wrap up. So thank you all. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Joke, and thank you, Feder, for joining me in this really interesting discussion. Very insightful, I think, for all of us. I would like to thank my community manager and Rachel, or Sherry. I'm sorry, Sherry. I'd like to thank Sherry for asking me, and I would like to thank all of you guys for watching. And again, Rachel, Diane, Joke, and Fedor, thank you so much for joining me.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, guys. Make sure you follow everybody that's on the panel on Twitter to keep the conversation going, and we will see you guys in the next panel in about 5 minutes.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.